Hello and welcome back to Full Time. My name is Theo Lloyd Hughes, producer Theo Lloyd Hughes, and I'm going to be your host today for a very special episode of Full Time. On Sunday night, Arsenal defeated Corinthians 3-2 after extra time to lift the first ever Women's FIFA Champions Cup in London on Sunday. But does that make them the best team in the world? We're going to be getting to all that on this week's Full Time, unpacking a big win for Manchester City in the WSL, and could an upcoming meeting between Arsenal and Man City really tell us more about where the real power in English, European and global soccer lies. All of that coming up. And now, what a pleasure to have on the Full Time pod your favourite crew from the Athletics UK office, all the way up in Liverpool, everyone's favourite Cajun on the Mersey. It's Megan Feringa. Megan, how are you?
Oh, I think that's my favorite intro I've ever had in my entire life, actually. Like going back through all the archives, that's it.
Well, what a pleasure to have you here. And I was just with her in North London last night. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere. It's Charlotte Harpur. Charlotte, how are you?
Hey, Theo. I'm good. It feels like we saw each other 12 hours ago.
I know. I'm just about cooling down from the flamethrowers on the pitch at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal became the first ever winners of the FIFA Women's Champions Cup. World champions, some might say, defeating Corinthians 3-2 after extra time. Charlotte, I'll throw it to you first.
I was texting someone who's a fan in the Arsenal crowd, and they were like, these Brazilian fans are amazing. We are being outnumbered and outvoiced. And yeah, it felt like a proper final. Like there was bite to it, you know, the drizzle, not as if that's the climate the Brazilians are used to, but those fans, they just kept going, that incessant beat. We had goals, we had drama, the penalty. So from a football perspective, especially compared to the semi-final, it was an improvement. But as we'll come on to, there was a lot of huge tifos put on by FIFA. But what did that really mean? I mean, Arsenal are inter-continental champions. Doesn't have quite the ring to world champions. Can we call them that?
Megan, you were in Manchester, and we're going to get to, that big game in the WSL. But from the outside, do you feel like this game captured a bit of glitz and glamour? Did it deliver in the idea that there was a intercontinental champion being crowned in women's football on Sunday night?
Leading up to it, a lot of people didn't even know it was happening. I'm not sure if that's a failure on sort of the marketing part, or if it's just the fact that it's in the middle of a season that there's already so many different sort of moments of jeopardy at stake. And suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, you also have this competition that's coming up. And everyone's like, wait, it's already February? How'd that happen? But there is, it clearly captured the imagination there because people were talking about it. It was exciting, like Charlotte said, from a purely sporting spectacle. It did deliver in the finale, which is so crucial to kind of, I guess, proving your merit as a competition. I think the lead up to it could have been desperately improved. Like I don't remember seeing any advertising for it whatsoever. It was really last minute organization in terms of, the competition was announced in March. The venues in Brentford and Arsenal were only decided on December the 12th. So you have a 6-week runway for fans to buy tickets. The presenting partner was only announced less than 2 weeks ago. So, FIFA wants to grow the global game and incentivize confederations to invest in their clubs so that they have stronger foundations in their domestic leagues. But they have chucked an awful lot of money at this, providing accommodation, business flights for these teams to fly over. But in terms of selling your product, you have to tell people about it. You can't just have a competition and presume people will turn up.
Yeah, I don't know how much credit I would give to FIFA beyond if you book Arsenal at the Emirates, you can get basically 25,000 people out, which is how many people were there on Sunday night. So to some extent, that's kind of like a layup or an open goal, right? So that was smart. The Corinthians fans, you've already mentioned it, Charlotte, absolutely stole the show and could be the enduring memory of this tournament beyond the football, beyond the fireworks, beyond the beautiful rose gold plate trophy lift we saw on Sunday night, beyond Caitlin Ford's winning goal in extra time, beyond the drama of the 90th minute penalty that Katie McCabe gave away for, quote, a careless challenge, which is what referee Katia Garcia said, when we do try and figure out what FIFA is giving us or the clubs or the world with this, one of the things they are giving is enormous prize money. Now, we'll get into a little bit more about this existential question of, are Arsenal the best team in the world now? Are they world champions? But, Megan, this prize money, $2.3 million, £1.7 million, does sort of immediately give this new tournament, the FIFA Women's Champions Cup, some meaning, right?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of in the same bracket as the World Sevens, right? They came in and they were trying to disrupt the ecosystem, if you will. And they got clubs talking. And I know fans might be upset because it's sort of a non-traditional thing and it's kind of interrupting the normal domestic season or coming just before the start of the domestic season if you're an NWSL team. But internally, clubs are speaking about this because the amount of money on offer is more than they're getting if they qualify for the Champions League, for example. You know, WSL clubs that don't qualify for the Champions League or just make it into the qualifying stages of the Champions League, they're still having to go to their hierarchy and ask for more money on their budget and try to tell them it's worth it. But suddenly, if you have a Champions Cup that's offering 1.7 million or a 7-a-side, 5-a-side tournament that's offering $1 million, your clubs are looking up at that and saying that is a better opportunity for us than the Champions League. So it is a catch-22 because you have a lot of clubs that are looking at the calendar. They're worried about the impact on players' welfare, on players' physical welfare, but also mental welfare. It's a lot to ask these players. You know, Arsenal are playing in 5 different tournaments or 5 different competitions this season. That is a lot to ask of a squad. And yet the financial incentive is there for them to compete from a player perspective and a club perspective.
We also have to think about the lens here because for other confederations, you know, this is about going from the roots upwards. You know, we are established in Europe across the board, much more established than other continents. So it's that incentive to plant the seed of like, if you invest.
You basically had at the FIFA Women's Champions Cup, arguably the richest clubs from those continents, or at least some of the teams that are putting in the most money. Arsenal most recently topped the Deloitte Money League, right? So to your point about investment or warping domestic leagues, it does seem kind of counterintuitive to some extent to reward the teams that are already spending the most money by giving them more money.
And two, I mean, I think if you look at what Arsenal would argue is that they've been investing in this for, you know, decades. They've been the ones that were doing this for probably the longest out of anyone. And that's why you've got, you know, that many fans showing up at the Emirates and showing up at Brentford. So I think you'd say that they deserve this. And by large, they do deserve that. But like you say, the competitive balance is definitely an issue. It's something that the WSL is having to try to wrestle with, but other places are trying to wrestle with it too. And, you know, the last thing you want is just sort of this hierarchy of teams that are constantly playing each other in the inter-continental cup. Like, imagine if next year it's the same teams. You know, then that starts to get boring, and then the product can't sell itself because it's like, oh, let's see a rerun of last season and the season prior. So yeah, I think all of these existential questions are going to have to start to get answered. But the financial state of women's football, it's so bizarre because it's a tiered system and you just don't want that to get cemented in place. And clubs then are just going to start feeling almost disillusioned. You know, why invest if there's no possibility of closing that gap because we've started too late and the gap's already expanding too far. So you want to reward clubs who are investing and are doing the right thing, i.e. Arsenal, but you also don't want to deter other clubs from not investing because they feel that the gap is now too great. So I do not envy the people who are trying to solve that mathematical equation at the moment.
Should give some extra credit to those Arsenal fans. They were fantastic. In very cold and drizzly circumstances, there was a great moment when the crowd sort of hushed on the VAR decision for Katie McCabe's foul, we'll call it, and the whole stadium went silent. Victoria converted a penalty against the odds to send to extra time, and the Corinthian fans obviously were pandemonium, but there was some really nice kind of swirling of red and white scarves and cries of Arsenal to try and re-jeer their team on. And I did think, yeah, you know, this team is really sticking by them. And going back to that Champions League win in Lisbon, I know you were there, Charlotte, they didn't really get to celebrate with as many Arsenal fans as they wanted to. So there was almost like a nice feeling of winning the Champions Cup at home, although that is a huge advantage. So are we kind of saying that, you know, Meg and Charlotte, money does give this tournament value, or is the concept of being intercontinental champions, world champions, worth something to these players and these teams? Because I think you and me, Charlotte, and we were there last night on Sunday night, it was kind of hard to figure out what this meant to the players. So is money the best way of kind of figuring out value of this tournament?
I spoke to an Arsenal fan, Kevin Price, before the game, and I think he summed it up pretty much. He said, it doesn't compare to the Champions League trophy,
right.
A 4-team competition, albeit champions of their respective continents, but you play 2 games and win a trophy. That's not how most competitions work. Champions League, the best. This will be good for bragging rights. Best team in the world and all that. So for the fans, they're just like, it's another trophy. We'll keep singing that.
Okay.
The money adds credence, but it just feels lacking substance of, the meat and the bones of this competition. But also, it's a new competition. It doesn't have the history and prestige. That's understandable. It's understandable that the players are like, I don't know, I haven't really thought about it.
It just kind of felt like Arsenal's season was being put on pause while everything else happened. And it was sort of like you had to compartmentalize and say, oh, right, I need to focus on this, but also that's happening over here. And it was confusing. But I think ethereal is a really good word. But that's what happens when you have such a young, raw, new product. It still has to kind of find its feet. It has to figure out what it is, find out kind of what its essence is.
My last point is that Asfar from Morocco, Corinthians, Gotham, they wanted to be there. Like that meant a lot to them. The Corinthians manager, Lucas Picinato, said, we'll never forget playing the European champions in their own home. We wanted to give the fans their dream to be world champions. So for them, it meant a lot. And I think we can be kind of, especially like the men's game, too European centric, and the women's game has more of a possibility to broaden its lens on a global scale.
Totally. I mean, I think Gotham, it's a minor detail, but Megan, Charlotte, I like minor details. But Gotham had made bespoke suits for the tournament, all the players, almost like a for a Euros or a World Cup, and I just thought that was a touch where they traveled to London all in matching pantsuits, and I was like, they are, that means you're taking it seriously. If you're getting matching pantsuits, this is not your average tournament. And speaking to the Asfar Rabat manager after, he said this tournament is going to show us the gap between African soccer and North American soccer and European soccer, and my job is to close that gap. And again, to your point, Charlotte, I think they took this very seriously. It's a huge marker of where the game is at. Let's change tempo here. Megan, what is easy to figure out is Manchester City 5, Chelsea 1, a dismantling, an embarrassment, an emphatic result, one of probably the most iconic results in recent WSL memory. I think we're going to be talking about this game for a decade. Up in Manchester on Sunday, you were there. If we didn't think the title race was already over, it certainly feels like it is now. Megan, take me to Manchester and what was a truly manic day for the blue side.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, really, and kind of surreal, to be honest. Like the lead up to it, it still felt like City had a bit of a swagger to them, but underneath that was the fact that Chelsea were still the only side that Andre Eglerts had failed to defeat. The 2 times of asking, City have lost to Chelsea this season. They're the only ones who've managed to do that to Andre Eglerts' City. So underneath that swagger was this very potent fact. But at the start of the game, you could just feel both teams were trying to figure themselves out. And then there's like 4 minutes in, and Carolyn does this absolutely absurd like back heel thing with Bunny Shaw, and it almost comes off. And it's that moment. It was like the fatal tell for Chelsea. It was like Carolyn's about to have a stormer here, and she did. And there's a moment where she's sort of up against I think it was Naomi Girma, and she like pulls Naomi Girma back. Rightfully, it's a foul, but she's already in through on goal, and like everyone in the stands, you could tell it was like she is like City are going to bully Chelsea here, and that's exactly what happened. That is what this City squad has become. Is like you've got all these different layers to it, all these different dimensions, players who are capable of having an incredible game, but underpinned by a team that is going to be consistently reliable and consistently good. I can't fault a single City player there. Whereas with Chelsea, these mentality monsters that we've held for 7 years, they looked so weak and just like so soft. And I think that was the most concerning aspect of it.
I want to talk a little bit more about Man City before we get into the Bompastor and Chelsea of it, because I think they were so fantastic. We have to kind of give them their flowers. Caroline with a hat trick. That, I think it was her second goal, the chip, or was that the third goal?
The chip was the second goal, because she ran from her own half, and not a single Chelsea player could even get within touching distance to even stick a leg out. And that just felt like a metaphor for the season, right?
Yes.
Like just do something, yes. Chelsea, just
running away with it.
And then Caroline's just out in front, Chelsea can't catch up to him. She chips the ball and then chips her body over Hannah Hampton, lands on her backside, puts her arms across her chest, and like wags her tongue in this sort of punk rock kiss. Caroline just looked like she was having fun, but the whole City squad, they just looked like they were having so much fun. They were just so fluid and they were dynamic. Jeglerts even said, actually, in his post-match that they were expecting Chelsea to play in the back three that Sonia Bompastor's been testing out this season. Mm-hmm. They were surprised by the fact that Bompastor actually went with the back four. And I think that's something that Jeglerts has kind of instilled in the squad, is this sort of really easy, cool confidence, very calm, no panic. And yeah, that mentality was on full show on Sunday.
Jeglerts has got a lot of credit for being the sort of cool operator to, in your words, Megan, maybe allow his players to smash guitars and express themselves on the pitch. Charlotte, what do you make of City's tremendous runaway at the top of the league and this, very, very memorable result against Chelsea? Is it down to Jeglerts having that demeanor, that calm in the presence of this maybe record-breaking season? 13 wins in a row now. What do you feel like is the thing that's clicking so well for City?
I think you have to look at the change in manager. Gareth Taylor was very structured in his formation, and you knew the plan, and there was very little wiggle room. And Jeglerts has come in and maintained some kind of structure, but given these players a bit more freedom and fluidity to express themselves. I remember chatting to him after the Manchester derby, where they thrashed United, and he said, "Yeah, I feel like this team is ahead of where I thought they were going to be. There were some kind of defensive tweaks that he was making, but the team have adapted really well and taken on board his new principles very quickly. And given the characters that are in that City squad, I think that they can turn up the volume even more on that. With Caroline and Bunny Shaw, you have two goal-scoring machines. And so when you make them super heroes almost and lean into their superpowers, it's next level that we haven't seen in this league before.
City could go for the record, which was set last year, 19 wins by Chelsea. Emma Hayes also made 19 wins once before. So when you talk about something we've never seen before, they are approaching a record, but there's still 8 games left of the season. Let's talk a little bit more about Chelsea then. Champions League, the top 3 teams at WSL go to Champions League. So Chelsea now into 3rd place, the final Champions League place, 1 point ahead of Arsenal, who have a game in hand because they were playing the FIFA Women's Champions Cup. So all that is to say, Champions League potentially in jeopardy for Chelsea. And Megan, for a team that last year set all these records, won everything on the domestic scene, 3 trophies, didn't lose a game under Sonia Bompastor. Almost a year later, here we are. And now, believe it or not, there seems to be a bit of a call for a change of the manager in Chelsea. Megan, what did you see in the post-match here, and what kind of pressure is growing on Sonia Bompastor in West London?
It's crazy to think that a manager who broke all these records and really has only suffered 2 defeats. That's it. It's 2 defeats.
Well, 3 now.
3. Yeah. Sorry, 2 in a row. And it's obviously the first time Chelsea have suffered 2 defeats in a row since 2015, which is, again, an absolutely crazy stat to read out. And I think it's the first time in her entire managerial career, 181 games, that she suffered back-to-back defeats. So, Again, when you think about it in isolation, 2 defeats in a row, not that deep. There's still some guy in Manchester whose hair is growing because they can't string 5 wins together, right? But because it's Chelsea, this is a huge deal. And in the post-match, before Sonia Bompastor came in, there were questions amongst the media do we actually have to ask her if she's in trouble here? This is kind of a weird situation to be in. And ultimately the question was asked, and Bompastor answered it in a way that was a little more firm than I think any of us expected. She said that she would be, quote, happy to go if the hierarchy felt that a change was needed. She's a very honest person, she said. She will fight till the end. She believes that she can still do this, but if change is needed, then that's she would accept that. I think the final quote that she had was, "The institution of Chelsea is bigger than me." Which just kind of goes to show what the reputation is at Chelsea. That this is a beast of the women's game, and to lose 2 in a row, to lose 3 in a season is unacceptable for fans, but also people internally. We put the piece out afterwards that Chelsea are still firmly backing Sonia Bompastor. I wouldn't be surprised if they have some business before the January transfer window closes. She was pretty scathing about the business that's been done. She said she would have liked more in the summer, and that she would have liked more reinforcements in this window, which I know a lot of fans will be listening to that and playing the world's smallest violin, because this Chelsea squad has had such incredible depth for so long. So there's clearly a lot to be done internally, but I think confidence is a huge part of this.
3 defeats, 2 wins and 2 draws in Chelsea's last 7 games. Like I said just now, Champions League places are going to be incredibly tight the rest of the season with 8 games remaining. Charlotte, we've talked a lot about money, prestige, what it means to win, what players and managers want to win. In terms of Megan laying out there that for now, Bompastor's job is safe, would the breaking point be Chelsea finishing 4th or lower and not qualifying for Champions League?
I think that would be massive. That would be a huge disappointment come the end of the season. But there's still a long way to go. We're still only in February. I just want to pick up on what Bompastor said about, we're not in a good place with the dynamics. And I think if, off the pitch, it's not a happy place, then that definitely reflects on the pitch. And it was really interesting. She said the institution at Chelsea is a lot more important than myself, which suggests this is not just, a women's team necessarily. I'll say that again. As an institution, that involves, the whole club, the owners of Chelsea, not just exclusive to the women's team. So there was obviously some unrest, behind the scenes. And I was quite surprised at Bompastor when she said, I'll be happy to go if they don't think I'm the right person. That is a strong statement. And, we're talking about if they're of their league standing, but problems could come a lot sooner than that, I think.
They will head to North London to meet Spurs, 5th place Spurs, on Sunday. If Spurs did beat Chelsea, handing a 3rd consecutive loss, which, going off what Megan just said in terms of the stats, would probably be the first time in her career she's lost 3 games in a row. That really kind of feels like the nail in the coffin. Let's keep our eyes on next weekend, because it's going to kind of tie a bow on this nice discussion here. We've got Arsenal hosting Manchester City. So City way ahead, 11 points clear at the top of the table. Arsenal, they're fighting for that Champions League spot to try and overtake Chelsea. Megan, how important is this game looking ahead, and what do you think it will tell us? The FIFA World Cup champions will be coming to the WSL to take on the likely WSL winners. This feels like a huge game in my mind to try and figure out some of these bragging rights.
Yeah, for Arsenal to win this game, it would mean everything for them. Bragging rights would be humongous, especially after Chelsea capitulating the way they did in the fashion that they did. It wasn't that long ago that we said Arsenal were nowhere near the title race. It'd be them and Manchester United scrapping it out for sort of dirty thirds, and now they are very capable of getting into second. So for Arsenal, there's everything to fight for, but I don't think City are going to take their foot off the gas. Even last night, they were still trying for goal number 6, and it was like 101 minutes. Like, this is a team that is refusing to relent and is constantly trying to get better. Even Jeglerts, we asked him about Carolyn, and it was such an open goal, right? To just be like, wow, she's amazing, and, enter into some sort of hyperbolic praise. And instead, he spoke about what he actually wanted her to do better. He said, I actually wanted her to go more central. I wanted her to link up more with our midfield players. And, yes, the second goal was phenomenal, but it was her work off the wing, and that's not what I wanted her to do. I wanted her to be more central. So you've got a squad that is just almost unhappy still, is trying to figure out where can we make those margins even wider between us and the rest of the pack. So I think City are going to also go there with a point to prove, because if they can match that 19 19 games winning run, they will be thinking about that, and that is an enticement. I also think it's worth mentioning Spurs at the moment. Like, I know they sit fifth. They are 2 points off second. Like, they definitely can tell that Chelsea are hurt right now. There's a lot of excitement going into that game, playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. If Spurs get a draw there, that is big. But a lot of people inside that club feel that they are capable of getting a win. And that is a huge, huge disruptor to this top 3 race, because Spurs are in this. Believe it or not. And like, someone's going to clip that up and be like, oh my gosh, look at this in a month's time if Spurs do fall off. But like, they are capable of disrupting that top 3 race. So I do think it's worth mentioning them.
I do think teams are almost most vulnerable after their biggest results. And I do wonder whether or not we see Arsenal at home with the crowd on their side doing something crazy and upsetting City this weekend. Before I let you both out of here, we've got to kind of finish where we started, and I'll ask you both very, very plainly. Are Arsenal the best team in the world right now? Your FIFA Women's Champions Cup. Megan, we'll go to you first.
Can I answer after this weekend?
Yes. You can say punt. You can say
I'm punting.
Speak to me next week.
I'm punting to next week. I think when Arsenal are on and they are clicking, there are very few other teams that can match them. I think Manchester City, in the vein that they're in at the moment, possibly. But yeah, when Arsenal are clicking, it's a very beautiful form of football to watch.
Charlotte, are your FIFA Women's Champions Cup champions and reigning European champions the best team in the world right now?
No.
Why?
On paper, they've jumped through the hoops to win the Champions League and win the Champions Cup. So technically you can say they're the best team in the world, but, not every team was given that opportunity. It was a 6-team competition. And I just don't think Arsenal are the best team in the world right now.
Is anyone the best team in the world? Are we as journalists cursed, burdened with this task of jumping on a microphone and trying to talk about this when there is no correct answer?
How can you? This is the whole club game, right? That FIFA wants. FIFA wants the best club in the world, but it's indefinable.
Yeah, this is social media football banter. This is what this is. It's just silly. It's the Messi versus Ronaldo conversation, but it's now transcended into club combo.
Well, there you have it. There is nothing but debate and endless streams of information and videos to keep us happy or unhappy, depending on your persuasion, until the end of time. Arsenal may or may not be the best team in the world, but we had a lot of fun watching the FIFA Women's Champions Cup. We had a lot of fun watching rock and roll Manchester City smash guitars up in Manchester. Megan, Charlotte, it's been an absolute delight to have you on, and I'm sure after this weekend we'll know a little bit more about who has the bragging rights, who is that bit closer to Champions League football, and who is going to win the WSL and all that good stuff. Megan and Charlotte, thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your week. And there is so much exciting football to catch up on. So thank you both. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on Full Time. If you have any thoughts or feelings about how we evaluate who is the best club in the world, well, we want to hear them. Email us, fulltime@theathletic.com. You can shoot us a DM over on Instagram or on our TikTok. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts on the first ever Women's Champions Cup, or perhaps tell us about your strong feelings on who will snap up the Champions League places in the WSL come the end of the season. Do let us know. And before we get out of here, normally you are listening to us at Full Time, but we also want to hear from you with our annual survey. We're asking you to fill out a quick survey about your podcast habits. You can go to theathletic.com/survey26 to do that. 3 lucky entrants will win £100 or $100, depending on where you are, of Amazon vouchers. So whether you're a long-time listener or a first-time listener, we want your feedback. Go to theathletic.com/survey26. That's theathletic.com/survey26. The link is also in our episode's show notes. And one more thing to tell you. Did you know The Athletic is partnered with Yahoo Sports to provide free, best-in-class coverage of women's sports? So yes, you can go check out the Women's Sports Hub at sports.yahoo.com/women's-sports. And after all that is our show today. I am your host and producer, Theo Lloyd-Hughes. There is absolutely no way Full Time could happen without our wonderful video producer, Leah Griffin, and our executive producer, Emily Olsen. What an incredible weekend of global women's soccer that all took place in England. And with that in the books, we turn our attentions to the close of the January transfer window, which will be closing this week. So look forward to that. There's going to be so much transfer news, so please stay tuned this week. Head over to The Athletic for all that, and I'm sure we'll be hearing you at the back end of the week for another big episode of Full Time. We can't wait to see you till next time. Cheers.